Okay, good morning, everybody. It is August 26, 2025, and we're going to do another in the Trump Fact Check series. First off, thank you for all, welcome to all the new subscribers. I'm appreciating all the comments I've been getting lately. Certainly been having a lot of them. So I want to say I'm at 296 subscribers. I need four more to get to 300. So I'm going to ask if four of you out there would please be so kind as to hit the subscribe button. Let's get this channel up to 300. Okay, on to the fact check. Trump had a tweet out on Truth Social recently, and I want to read it. The tweet came out on August 24th, and it said, "Accept what is written and broadcast in the fake news. I now have the highest poll numbers I've ever had, some in the 60s and even 70s. Thank you. Make America great again." Okay, so the fact that we're going to be checking is Trump's assertion that he is, in fact, has the highest poll numbers he's ever had. More importantly, that he's in the 60s and 70s. Well, fortunately for us, this is easily tracked. So if you were to go to the Real Clear Politics page, they keep an aggregator of polling. And so let's pull that up and let's take a quick look at what is going on with President Trump's job approval numbers. Okay, right now, his average is that he has a 46.1% approval rating and an average disapproval rating of 51.2. So right there you can tell the I'm in the 60s and 70s is a lie. But let's go through the last, hold on, let me count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 polls that they have here. So this is the last 10. We have Harvard Harris has Trump at -2 with an approval rating of 47%. Rasmussen, who is his most favorable polling agency, Rasmussen almost always has the highest numbers for him, has him at +1, 50 approve, 49 disapprove. Economist YouGov has him at -12, 43% approval, 55 approve. Morning Consult has him at -4, that's with a 47% approval. RMG Research has him at +1, 49% approval. Insider Advantage has him at +10 at 54% approval. Reuters and Ipsos has him at -14 with a 40% approval. Qantas Insights has him at -4 with a 47% approval. Pew Research has him at -22 with a 38% approval. And CNBC has him at -5 with 46%. So the point of this is I ran through the last 10 polls. None of them hit 60. In fact, only 2 of them were even in the 50s, and they were 50 and 54. None of them hit 55. Trump said 60s and 70s. 10 polls in a row, 0 in the 60s or 70s. In fact, 0 of them at 55. Only 2 of them in the 50s at all, and the 7 of them in the 40s and 1 in the 30s. Now, I'll be honest, I don't buy -22. I don't buy +10 either. The average -5, I would probably say that feels to me like it's about right. Now, the other thing he said was this is the highest he's ever had. Well, let's take a look at that. If we go down a little bit on the Real Clear Politics polling page, you can see a graph where they show you his approval rating over time. The highest it's been in his entire second term, the absolute zenith, was right at the very beginning of his administration. He had an average approval rate of 50.4%. Now, I don't know if there was a poll back then that had him at 60, but the average was 50.4. It has pretty much gone down, down, down since then. His lowest point, his approval was about 45.1. He's currently at about 46.1. So he's about 4 points lower than his highest, and he's about 1 point higher than his lowest. But again, at no time was he at 60 or 70. At no time was he at 55. At no time was he at 53. There may be some individual polls and have him in the 50s or even the mid-50s, but there's nothing in the 60s or 70s. So I would rate this as a statement by Trump completely false. And we have significant data to back that up. Now, by the way, you may say, well, hold on, I don't buy the -22 or the +12 or anything. No problem. I understand if you want to take issue with some of these polls. The point, though, is that he's saying is that the polls are saying he's at these numbers. And I'm telling you the polls, right or wrong, are not saying he's at these numbers. And I just read them out to you. I read the last 10. And then we looked at the historical average for his second term. Now, I do want to answer a question. Someone said, why am I fact checking him if I'm a Republican? I'm not fact checking Democrats. This is an excellent question. I'm glad somebody asked it. The primary reason is that it is precisely because I'm not a Democrat. I do want the Republican Party held to a higher standard. Democrats lie through their teeth all the time, and they basically get covered for it by the media. We saw this in disaster, and I believe it was, July of 2024 when we had the Biden-Trump debate. And the media had been lying through their teeth, as had many Democrat politicians. Biden is so sharp, he's so energetic, the staff can't keep up with it. It's the best Biden we've ever seen, it's the sharpest Biden we've ever seen. That was all false. There was tons of evidence at that point that he was in serious cognitive decline. And then he came out to the debate, and everybody saw it, and all of a sudden the lie didn't work anymore. And it crashed, and within a couple of weeks he was withdrawn. And we know what happens in the election after that. So the point of it is that, yes, no one held the Democrats accountable, and it blew up in their face. The same thing will happen to the Republicans with all the lies Trump is telling. By the way, this is ultimately the result of all lies. Eventually, it blows up in your face. I thought the best philosophical examination of that was the HBO miniseries Chernobyl, where they do a great job. So if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, the basic idea is you have the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in 1986. There's an explosion at the plant, and they're saying, well, hold on, this is an RBMK reactor. RBMK reactors, they can melt down, but they can't explode. It's not physically possible. And they spend the first 3 episodes asking the question, how did it explode? How did it explode? And then finally in the 4th episode, they explain it. And they explain it both from a technical perspective, the this happened and the this happened and this led to this result, which led to this result, and eventually the explosion. They also made the philosophical point about lies, and that the price of lies, and that I love the quote from it, which says, every lie incurs a debt to the truth, and sooner or later that debt has to be paid. And it doesn't care about your politics, your religion, your ideology, none of it. You're going to pay that debt. Democrats saw that in a catastrophic way in the summer of 2024, and they saw it again in November. By the way, here's another lie, is the idea that Kamala Harris is a good candidate. She's objectively a terrible candidate. How do I know that? In the 2020 primaries, she comes out, she immediately rockets to the top of the polling, rockets to the top of the fundraising, and then does nothing but go down. She didn't even make it to the month before the Iowa caucuses. She dropped out like 2 months before the Iowa caucuses because her fundraising had flatlined and her polling had flatlined. She is a bad candidate. The idea that they were going to, remember, the Democrats did not have any kind of primary. They went straight to Harris. There was no other candidate that was going to be allowed to be considered. That was all a lie. The idea that it just had to go to Harris. No, it didn't. They could have looked at other candidates. And on election night in November, everything fell apart. You may remember the Seltzer poll came out a few days before saying that Harris had a commanding lead in Iowa, and she ends up losing Iowa by a huge margin. So the point of it is, we as Republicans need to hold our leaders to a higher standard, or else next time it's going to be us having the same thing happen. So either way, that's my reason. There's my soapbox. Trump is again lying. I will continue to call him out because I hope desperately and foolishly and naively, I think, that somehow maybe we can get the GOP to start looking at the truth again. Probably not. I'm probably going to fail miserably, but I'm going to give it a shot. All right, bye-bye.